Fellow enjoyers of Unicorn Overlord, I come to you today bearing a gigantic compilation of all of my class tier list videos for, of course, Unicorn Overlord. I get a lot of surprising comments, actually, of people asking where other parts are, or if I have a video covering promoted classes or the like, which is a little odd to me. I don't think they're that hard to find, but if they are, and I'm here to serve what you, the community, are looking for when covering any sort of game, especially one of our favorite games of all time around here. So, you can see all 4 parts here. I will have them timestamped if you are looking for a particular one, intros and outros edited down, all that fun stuff, so y'all have a little bit of a long-form Unicorn Overlord chunk of content to enjoy. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
It is tier list time, everybody. I know other people have gotten these out far earlier than myself, but my idea here is that I kind of want to do a tier list for the classes that is an episodic thing. Each time I put out one of my class overview videos, I will then put out an accompanying tier list video to discuss all of the classes that we brought up during that specific episode of the class overview and give my general thoughts and where I feel that they fall on the ranking. Now, the first thing that I want to say here is that there are actually no bad classes in Unicorn Overlord. There's not really even any bad characters in Unicorn Overlord. Not that we're talking about the unique characters here at the moment anyway. However, I think in an overall power scaling list, there are still some that are better or worse based largely on their versatility or how self-sufficient they are, things like that. And I'll talk about my reasonings for each class when I do put them into the list. So we're going to go through in the same order that I went through for my class overview. So if you're following along from that, or you're watching this video before or after it, you should have a fairly similar sense of cohesion here. Also, the idea here is that we will return to this list with each successive episode, so we can, by the end, have a fully complete list of all of the classes in the game, how I feel about them, and where I believe that they should be ranked. Thus, you'll see there's a bunch of classes on here that we won't be going through today because we haven't talked about them in the class overviews yet. Don't worry, we'll get to them. Now, with all that said, let's get to the Lord. The Lord, I think, is a very easy S-class. The reason I think that is because Elaine really doesn't need help from anybody. He doesn't need support. He doesn't need backup. It helps, of course, but he's very self-sufficient. He's got a shield so he can guard very successfully. He's got good all-around stats. His damage output is very solid. Lean Edge allows him to sustain himself. Yes, there's going to be things that shut him down, status effects in particular, but of all of the characters and all of the classes in the game outside of something like Dark Marquess, he's very, very versatile and very resilient, and that means that he can fit into the S rank tier very, very easily. There's next to no unit composition that I can think of that wouldn't like to have Elaine in it, and that to me is what really makes an S rank character or an S rank class in Unicorn Overlord. Not a whole lot else to say there. I do want to keep these pretty short and snappy, but yeah, I don't think there's really any disputing the fact that Elaine is very good as a Lord. And once we get to High Lord in a later class overview, it'll probably be an S rank as well. A little bit of a spoiler warning there. Next up is Fighters, and yeah, if Elaine is an S rank, Fighters are probably going to be like B rank. They're not bad, they're not great, they're a very solid middle of the road, and when you want them, when you use them, they are really nice. But when you're looking at your units, if you don't have a super squishy set of backliners or like a flyer in the front line that you need to make sure stays protected at all costs, it's a good chance that you don't need a fighter. You want something either tankier, like a hoplite or a gladiator, or something that's going to be more able to deal more damage or have more versatility in terms of dealing with status effects, things like that, like a thief. They're great when they're great, but otherwise they're just fine. They're not bad, but fine. So I think B rank is where they sit at. Paladin, on the other hand, especially in the early game, especially compared to some of these early classes, is going to easily be an A rank class. The reason it's not in S is the fact that its damage does fall off pretty significantly as you start to get into the mid-game. And while you can remedy that with things like the Runic Sword, there's also just other roles that Paladin can fill other than being a damage dealer. There's plenty of damage dealers. Even in the early game, when we're just talking about these early game classes, you don't need Paladin to be dealing that damage. He can. Joseph absolutely can be for you for a good long while, But where he's truly going to shine, where he's truly going to have the most staying power, is going to be in a defensive and support role. Once he wasn't dealing much damage anymore and I wanted the Runic Blade on other characters, I switched Joseph over to being a frontline tank and support unit, and he performed admirably. Like the Lord, he's got a shield, so he can defend quite well, and his suite of support skills, like his heals and his shields and his follow-up attacks, are all really, really nice. And it allows him to be doing a lot without ever actually needing to come out swinging with an active point attack. If you have something else you want to do with his active points, you can, and I think that's great. So Paladin, phenomenal class, great support abilities, great mobility, but I don't think it's the all-around high quality that something like the Lord is. Hoplites are in an interesting position because once they promote to Legionnaire, they get way, way better because of the active and passive points that they have to play with. Prior to that, especially earlier in the game, when we're talking about these like lower tier early game classes, I think they're going to be C tier. I really like Legionnaires. I very highly value the Legionnaire, the one single Legionnaire I've had the opportunity to use in my army because he's a monster and he just does not go down. Especially once you have more accessory slots and everything like that, he's phenomenal. The issue is that Hoplite is much more limited. Hoplites are hungry for that promotion, and while they of course have their roles early in the game, they're probably the most limited class early in the game. I like them. They do still have their uses, but I mean, their damage output is not good. Their mobility is terrible. Like, they can be brought down far more easily than you would expect due to hammer units, mages, etc. So, yeah, it's a rough time for Hoplites early in the game. They grow into very powerful units, but they don't start that way, which is a shame. Moving on to Soldier, I think Soldier is another S-rank class. And again, because you can put a Soldier in pretty much any unit, and that unit is happier for having them there. The fact that they have good damage, they can hit AoE targets, they can hit flyers, they can deal bonus damage to cavalry, they can heal and support allies that way, they can give allies guaranteed crits and hits and all sorts of fun stuff like that. They're fairly durable, their damage output is pretty decent, like they're just good at a bit of everything. And in a game like Unicorn Overlord, where you want each unit, unless it's hyper specialized for a particular reason, to be able to handle as many different situations as possible, having a class that's able to accommodate so many different roles and give other slots more room to breathe and more specified roles is great. It's the glue that holds everything together. I'm always happy to be able to field another soldier anywhere in my army. They're great, and that's before we even get into sergeants. So yeah, Soldier, I say S-tier class. Absolutely phenomenal. Moving on to Knights. Knights are going to fall alongside Paladin in the A tier. The reason being that they're phenomenal damage dealers, but they definitely need support, and you can't just slap one into any given squad and call it a day. There's so much anti-cavalry effectiveness in the game that they definitely need support, and if you're in a situation where you can't just start one-shotting things with Assaulting Lance, especially early in the game, to be able to bring targets down quickly and start chaining those kills together, then they're going to suffer. Like, yes, they're nice support units as well for other cavalry because they can provide them attack buffs, and Wild Rush is nice for being able to stun things. It's not going to seal the deal, and again, if you can't keep them protected, they're going to collapse far more quickly than you would expect, even with their quick guards. So they're not an S-rank class, but they are extremely capable, and Knights have been some of my favorite units. So you just have to be a little bit more careful with how you use them. Housecarls, S-tier class, easily. And again, for similar reasons as the previous two S-rank candidates. Any unit that cares about dealing any amount of physical damage is going to be happy to have a Housecarl. Housecarls are so great for their AoE defense debuffs or their single target defense debuffs, as well as their follow-up attacks, counterattacks, all that type of good stuff. Like, enemies tremble when a Housecarl steps in front of them, and God forbid there be more than one in any given squad, because their defenses are just going to be turned to paper instantaneously. And because of the fact that their own offense is also like pretty damn good, even if you're using them as damage while also doing defense debuffs, like they can carve through fairly vulnerable enemies, like mages and witches and clerics and other things like that tremble at the sight of a Housecarl, just because he's going to cut them in half, let alone they're being worried about their defense. Like, they don't have any defense anyway. They're just going to fall. It's great. I love Housecarls. I've not had the chance to use them as much as I would like just because no patrons have selected one, but they're phenomenal. I think they're a great class, and there's a reason that even in Elheim, you'll find one single unpromoted Housecarl in the backline of enemy squads. Just so he can rolling axe through your front line and just tank all of their defense. It's very rude, but it shows how capable they are, so S rank for sure. Next up are Thieves, and I believe they are also an S-rank class. I know we've got a lot of S-rank here, but there's a lot of very capable classes that you get access to very early in the game before you start getting more specialized classes that are actually, as a result, even though they're very powerful, be a little bit lower on this tier list for me because I'm looking at how universally good any of these classes are, and Thieves are universally good. Especially in the early game, the fact that you can either have a Thief in the front line as a dodge tank, stealing passive points, evading attacks, and generally being a giant nuisance for the enemy, or put them in the back line and start poisoning everything with Poison Toss, which, as a ranged attack, you can also like hit different types of more annoying units in the back line with it, is phenomenal. As you get later in the game, Thieves will become more vulnerable to like the proliferation of true strike attacks and things like that, but that's also when units like fighters become way better for you, so I don't think that really takes away from the versatility and capability of the Thief. They're just able to do so much. They're a fairly simple class, all things considered, but I love them. There's a ton of different roles that they can fit into, and seeing as how I've had like 4 Thieves to use over the course of this campaign thus far, I feel like I'm in a pretty good position to assign them to this role, because I've really had to figure out wherever I could put them in a squad where they would actually be useful, and it's shown how useful they can be. So yeah, Thieves S rank for sure. Hunters, I'm not as high on as I expected to be, and I think I'm going to be putting them in B tier. Much like fighters, they're really good when they're good. Being able to just snipe down a flying unit or potentially start picking off dangerous backliners because they're one of the only ranged attacks you get at the start of the game. Being able to make sure that they have a guaranteed chance to hit. They get dual shot for AoE. There's good status effect bows. Like, they're good. The issue is that they need to be in a position where their strengths shine, or I often find myself wishing that I just had a different type of character or class in the slot that they're in the current unit. Like, having that ability to just snipe down a flyer cannot be overstated for its power, but that's not going to be every squad. Even in Drakkenhold, where there's wyverns everywhere, you're not always going to be fighting wyverns. There's going to be plenty of other targets, and as soon as there's a hoplite or a fighter, your hunter's going to be useless unless you have like a status effect bow on them. So yeah, I expect them to be more useful than they are, and they're definitely great when they're great, much like fighters, but they're not great all the time, so I think a solid B rank unit. Gladiators, okay. This is going to be a contentious one. I know a lot of people don't like gladiators. They think that they're very limited, very weak. I highly disagree. I think gladiators are an A rank unit, and we're going to talk about why. The reason that I put gladiators here is twofold. First of all, they're phenomenal at what they do. Like, fighters and hunters are great when they're great. Gladiators are fucking phenomenal, man. The amount of punishment that they can take, the amount of damage that they can heal off, and then the amount of damage that they can dish out in return with just their basic 2 abilities is insane. I use Bruno the Gladiator in one of my favorite units thus far in my campaign, and you know what I have him do? I have him use Wide Smash, and I have him use Bulk Up. I haven't even needed any of his other abilities because his raw stat line and his capabilities with those 2 skills are already so good. And that's why I feel like they fit into A rank. They're not super versatile like some of our S rank units are, or all of our S rank units are, really. But what they do is so nice that I can't think that they're anywhere other than A. Like, I'm always happy to have a gladiator in the front line of one of my squads, because just the amount of punishment that they can absorb, and then the amount of damage that they can dish out, especially as soon as they have any sort of support, is great. And it's kind of like knights in that regard. As soon as you have something that's going to buff their attack, buff their accuracy, put maybe a status effect on their swing, make them just a little bit tankier so that Bulk Up can really heal through all of the damage, they become unstoppable forces of destruction, just like knights. I love them. I think they are a highly underrated class. Next, we have warriors, and warriors, I think, for me, are going to fit into C tier as well. And I know you might be thinking, well, Tom, warriors are basically infantry knights in a lot of ways, and they give you anti-armor capabilities. Why would you rank them so low? Because, like, they're versatile. They are. The issue is that you don't really need them for anti-armor at all. Like, yeah, they're really good at it, but hoplites and fighters are not that hard to deal with, or not so hard to deal with that you need a dedicated hammer unit to do so. Any sort of magic is going to tear them apart. Any sort of status effect is going to tear them apart or render them completely useless in their intended role. So having a class that's dedicated to just hammering things, not really necessary. Now, that said, once you promote to Breaker, you get a lot more going on, but we're not talking about Breaker here, we're talking about Warrior. And while, yes, you can get things like Assaulting Blow, the Warrior isn't as capable at their role of the Killing Chain sort of effect as Knights are, or even Sellswords are later on. Warriors need other units to set up that Assaulting Blow for them, and because they have such like a limited kit in terms of damage dealing, they can't really do it for themselves. Knights have a lot of different ways to buff their own attack or just get bonus damage because they're cavalry against infantry. Sellswords, which we'll talk about soon, are great because they can just say, alright, I'm going to say, I don't know, follow-up attack for all of my friends who are attacked, and then everything is weakened and I can start killing chaining. Warriors can't do that. So while they're very good in specific circumstances and with specific squad setups, especially early in the game, they're nowhere near as versatile as I think any other class. I'm almost tempted to drop them down to D tier, but I don't actually think that there's any D tier units in this first class overview. So C rank is where they're going to sit. I'm not a huge fan of early game warriors for sure. What I am a huge fan of is early game wizards. Wizards, I think, are absolutely an A-tier class, just because the raw damage output that they're able to dish out, much like knights, makes them an incredible force of destruction. They're also incredibly, incredibly vulnerable. This is one of those classes that really likes to have a tanky unit like a fighter or a legionnaire up front to absorb any sort of damage that might start to come their way, because if you don't, they will collapse under the weight of their own hubris. But things like their various different fireball attacks, their magic counter, magic follow-up once you get them higher leveled, they're able to shred so many enemies, and I think that makes them phenomenal. As such, A tier it is. Clerics. Clerics are an S tier class. Clerics are absolutely an S tier class, even though they cannot attack, but every single unit is happy to have a cleric. If you are literally taking any damage in any way for any unit that intends to be on the front lines in any capacity, they are happy to have a cleric. The ability to heal both off of their AP and their passive points, their ability to remove status effects and debuffs, their ability to resurrect allies or heal rows or get all sorts of other crazy effects from the various very powerful staves that you can find pretty early in the game makes them an incredibly versatile unit. I cannot overstate this enough. Clerics may be simple compared to other classes, but that simplicity gives them so much power. I don't think they can be anywhere other than S. They're phenomenal. Similarly, witches. Witches, I think, are also an S rank class because they have a nice combination of both damage and control. And they're also able to buff their allies. Again, if you have any sort of a unit that has a frontliner that's dealing physical damage, or a backliner that's dealing physical damage, and especially if they have any sort of AoE, magic conferral is huge. Like, just putting a Griffin Knight and a Witch in a squad together is going to clear huge swaths of the early game for you. And that's before you even consider any other character or class that could be in that unit. Then you factor in the fact that you can have them just snipe dangerous targets with an ice bolt and leave them frozen for the entire fight if you wanted to. Completely removing them from the board is insane. And then the fact that they get AoE magic later on is also really strong. Witches just continue to scale extremely well. They give you ranged magical assists. They're phenomenal. They're an S-rank unit. We're in the final three here for this particular episode, and now we are talking about Griffin Knights. Griffin Knights, I originally, in my head, had listed as an S-rank unit, but I think I've got to bump them down to A for similar reasons to our other A rankers. Griffin Knights are extremely strong. Their wide sweep is great. Their natural evasion, especially against ground-based targets, is huge. The fact that they can self-heal is phenomenal. But you absolutely want particular other types of characters in their unit with them to really make them shine. You want a fighter. You want a hoplite. You want a witch. You want things that are going to be able to magnify the strengths of the Griffin Knight and cover for their weaknesses before they can truly shine. Hell, a Housecarl, rolling axe, just debuffing the defense of an entire enemy row before the Griffin Knight comes in and hacks them in two with one mighty cleave. Like, that's where they're going to really shine. And the thing about the Griffin is that one errant arrow will take them down, or one lucky hit from a powerful physical attack will also take them down. God forbid a sword fighter show up or something get a 100% chance to hit. Your Griffin Knight's going to fold if they don't have the proper support. And that's what makes me feel like they are a bit more limited. Their kit as well, like, they do one thing and they do it pretty damn well, and that's cut through a row of enemies and then dodge. That's kind of it. If you don't need that particular functionality in a squad, your Griffin Knight's going to feel a whole heck of a lot worse. So, as a more specialized unit, I think they belong in A tier. Moving on to sellswords. I think this one is actually going to surprise people, but especially early in the game before they get promoted, I think sellswords are a B tier unit. Even though I love them, even though they're one of my favorite character classes in the game, the issue with the sellsword is they are a one-trick pony. They can do one thing, and they do that one thing really well, and that's hit one target really, really hard. Heavy slash, massive damage, follow-up attacks, phenomenal. Killing chain, obviously really good. The problem is that if anything happens to them, they're just toast. God forbid you get blinded, or frozen, or burnt, or poisoned, or there be any enemy that has any modicum of defense at all, and your sellsword is going to become worse than useless. They're going to be just a body on the board that's taking up a slot in your unit that could have been used for something else. When they shine, they're great. Again, my favorite squad that I've made in the game thus far is the Super Tax Bros, which is a Legionnaire and was sellswords. Now it's Lance Connects, which I've seen like 3 different ways that I'm supposed to pronounce it, and I've been trying to pronounce it in different ways, and I still haven't gotten it right, so I'm sure I'm just going to get corrected till the end of time, but it's fine. They get way better once they're promoted because they get the shield slot, and their damage goes even more through the roof, etc. They get different abilities that give them a bit more versatility, but as a sellsword, they're very, very limited, and any situation that they're not able to crush, they're going to be a limp noodle, and it's a shame, but yeah, I think it makes them a B tier unit. Finally, the last of our classes to discuss in this video, and of course I've been interchanging unit and class from years and years of habit, my apologies, is the Shaman. And the Shaman, much like the Cleric, is an S tier class. The reason that Shaman is an S tier class is they're just clerics, but offense oriented, basically. Like, yeah, they're not attacking, but anything a cleric's doing defensively to heal you up, a Shaman is taking the fight to the enemy and saying, no, you just don't get to do stuff. Shamans are the blue players. They are the blue mages out of this entire assortment of classes and characters, and they are completely unabashed about it, and it's why I love them. A shaman in a squad, any squad, is going to make that squad's survivability shoot through the goddamn roof. Especially earlier in the game, when enemy units are more limited in size and capability, a shaman will shut them down, and God forbid you have 2, because then they're just not going to be able to do anything for the rest of time. We all remember that one liberation mission where it's 2 shamans in the back line and 2 gladiators in the front line and how hard it was to carve through. That's because shaman is so good. Just the fact that their base ability makes an entire enemy row deal basically 0 damage is disgustingly strong, let alone the fact that they also then have a reaction that can reduce the damage of a particular enemy unit and prevent them from critting as well, which is just gross. The fact that later on they get things that can debuff enemy defense and resistance as well. They can equip staves, so they can do a bunch of different fun things with different types of effect staves, burn staves, etc. It's an incredibly versatile class, and I really think you would be remiss to not be running a couple of these throughout your army. It will make your life so much easier. S tier for sure. They're good in any unit. We are here, and it is time. We're back to the class tier list for Unicorn Overlord, and as I stated in the previous episode of it, we are picking up where we left off with the first batch of classes, the early game classes. The idea is how versatile is any given class. Like, yes, a Radiant Knight is pound for pound more powerful than, say, an Arbalist. I think that's a pretty easy distinction to make, but that doesn't necessarily mean that one is S tier and the other isn't. We'll see when we get to them where I decided that they should fall. But more, how does the inclusion of a class in a squad make that squad better? That's the idea here. That's what I'm going off of. And I'm typically looking at combat here. People were very surprised that I wasn't really bringing up Valor skills much in the previous episode, and I'm really not planning to that much here as well. Like, Valor skills are very good, but they never make or break a class for me. So if it's relevant to bring up something that's particularly powerful or particularly useful, you know, something that's key to a class's kit, then we will. But beyond that, it's not going to be something that I worry about too much here. The Sword Fighter is a very interesting one. It's kind of one that I think a lot of people have been a little disappointed in, myself included. You know, you think of Sword Fighters and Sword Masters in terms of something like Fire Emblem, where you've got your Myrmidons, your Sword Masters, your True Blades, things like that. And they're very, very powerful. They're typically some of the best characters and classes in those games. So you feel like, okay, well, that's probably kind of how it'll be here, because, you know, clearly Unicorn Overlord does take a lot from Fire Emblem in terms of its classes. But Sword Fighters are just kind of middle of the road, man. Like, they do a lot of damage. It's nice that they have True Strike, that they're able to just drop flyers and thieves and things like that, but they don't have the raw punch that I expected them to have. And the fact that, like, their start of battle ability, it's anti-synergistic with other sword fighters, so you kind of don't want to have multiple of them in the same squad. It's still just like one quick hit, which can deal a lot of damage, but still, they're a weird class, man. I'm not super high on sword fighters at all. Sword masters get a bit better, but the base class I'm not a huge fan of, and they really just don't bring much to the table, even in terms of like leader effects or valor skills to try and prop them up either. So I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of like, I think they're kind of a C tier class. Like, they're down there with warrior for me, wherein the promoted classes definitely do a lot for them. These are classes that want the extra AP, they want the extra passive points, they want the extra stats to lean into what it is that they're doing. But until they get them, not feeling too hot about it, man. Not feeling too hot about it. Sorry for my Sword Fighter fans out there. I think a lot of you are going to agree with this. Some of you might say it should be like B, but I don't know. I've got Cell Swords in B, and I think Cell Swords are way better than Sword Fighters. So, yeah, we're going to stick with that. Moving on to Radiant Knight now. This is... You want to talk about a class that is indisputably powerful. Radiant Knights are S tier. Bar none. No questions asked. You can put a Radiant Knight into any damn squad, and they will make that squad better. Period. Like, I put a Sword Fighter in a squad, and I feel like the squad gets worse sometimes. But I put a Radiant Knight in a squad, and it's like, oh yeah, these guys are going to slap. These guys are going to be real tough to bring down, and even the Radiant Knight herself is going to deal a lot of damage. Like, the fact that Radiant Knights are basically mini paladins, before we even talk about them promoting the Sainted Knight, which is a whole different ballgame, but, like, they can heal in a row, they can guard allies, they can put up magic barriers, they've got a sword and a shield, they've got good damage, they've got good personal durability, they're cavalry, so they can move faster. Not, again, we're not focusing on outside of battle traits here, but still it is something to consider. Like, Radiant Knights are just great. I'm honestly amazed that you get access to Radiant Knights as early as you do. And, like, yeah, I know the progression you're supposed to take is do part of Cornea, then go to Drakenhold, then go back to Cornea, but, like, nothing's stopping you from just doing the full loop of Cornea and picking up things like Radiant Knight. You can get Radiant Knights before you get Sword Fighters. It's insane. Like, there's nowhere else that Radiant Knight could be but S rank. They just make every single squad better. Kind of like Shaman and Cleric, honestly, even. But I would almost say that Radiant Knight outclasses Cleric to the point that Cleric gets bumped down a tier, but we'll wait to make any sort of judgments like that. I might come back to it at the end of this video, because that is something to consider. But no, Radiant Knights are insane. If you're not using them, you have to, for sure. Moving on to Wyvern Knight. Wyvern Knights are also very, very strong, but kind of along the lines of things like Knights, like regular Knights, Griffin Knights. I don't necessarily think that Wyvern Knight is S tier, because they do need support, and they also do desperately want to be Wyvern Masters or get extra AP. Like, some of the best skills that you can give them are some of the lance weapons, some of the spear weapons that give them a 2 AP skill, like Dragoon Dive, and you do need to build around that. Like, they'll be really good. You definitely will be happy to have them in a squad, but they don't make every squad they're in better, and they can crumble pretty easily if they get hit by something like a mage or an archer or whatever. So I think they're going to go in A tier as well. I guess there's kind of a growing idea here that your pure damage units are not really S tier most of the time, because that's all they do. They don't bring much else to the table in that regard. And again, Wyvern Knights are nice, but yeah, I don't think they're S tier. They've got good damage. They can parry. Obviously, they're flying, which is nice. They have good damage against ground-based units. They get the extra dodge against ground-based units, all that type of stuff. Everything that makes a Griffin Knight good makes a Wyvern Knight good. They're just the single-target version of the Griffin Knight. So if Griffin Knight is in A, I think Wyvern Knight is also in A. Also, I just wanted to circle back to this really quick, because like I know I said Radiant Knights are basically mini Paladins, but I put Radiant Knight a tier higher. Just the fact that Radiant Knight has a row heal makes it better than Paladin in a lot of ways for me. Like, yeah, Paladin has better stats, of course, and really Paladin makes pretty much any squad that it's in better as well. But yeah, I don't know, man. Radiant Knights just feel better to me. And then they still have a promotion to look forward to as well. Like, they're crazy. They're absolutely crazy. Moving on to Arbalest. Arbalest is a very fun one. I like that they have a mix of ranged combat damage, of like AoE healing, of poison, smoke shot again as Valor skill is really, really nice. Like, these are a good class for sure, but they fill a similar niche in a lot of ways to Radiant Knight. Obviously, they get like poison damage as opposed to Radiant Knight just getting more like AP and PP type stuff and just having better magic damage, raw magic damage. But I don't think that Arbalest is quite S tier. That might be very different for Shield Shooter, but I think Arbalest is an A tier unit. They will pretty much make any squad that they're in happier, but there's definitely going to be times where they just run up against a brick wall and their damage output just isn't what it needs to be to have that combined support and damage utility that something like the Radiant Knight has, and they don't have quite the same level of punch when it comes to just raw support like a Cleric or a Shaman does. They're nice, but they're a little bit jack of all trades, master of none type of deal, in my opinion. But they're not like a B tier unit. They're not limited in the way some of these others are. I definitely like Arbalists more than Hunters. But yeah, I think they're an A tier unit for sure. Now, Dark Knight. Oh, man, it's such a shame. You can see my playstyle and the types of units that I like because they all wind up in B tier. like I gush about Radiant Knight, but like I love things that like chain together attacks like Sellsword, or that are just like good dedicated tanky boys like fighters, or very high risk, high reward, life drain type stuff like Dark Knight. But all of these need a fairly specific comp to work, especially when they're in their unpromoted forms. And I think Dark Knight is the same way. It's so easy to overestimate what your Dark Knight is going to be able to handle and then have them just get pasted by something that you really thought that they'd be able to survive, and they just can't. And like their defenses aren't good enough to just completely weather the storm. Their synergies are a little whack because you want them to take damage, but not too much damage so that they can reach their maximum potential. Like, they've got a little bit of a weird combination of things going on with, like, they deal poison damage, but then they also just deal regular damage, and then they, like, want to get hit and heal, but, like, they want their HP to be low, but they want their HP to be high. There's a lot of give and take, and if you can build something around them that works, they do work really, really well. But they are also definitely a class that needs the promotion glow up. They need to hit Doom Knight to really hit their stride, especially for that extra accessory slot. Like, they're strong, just like Sellsword is strong. Some of my best squads focus around Sellswords and Dark Knights, but on their own, they don't add that much to any given squad, and in fact, they demand more support from their squad than a lot of the other units that we have at higher tiers. I don't think they're a C tier because they do have so much power behind them. Like, I would trust a Dark Knight to be able to handle a situation over a Sword Fighter or a Warrior any day of the week, for sure. They just have a lot more going on for them that they can do that makes them more versatile and more capable, but I don't think I can put them any higher than B. Again, once they hit Doom Knight, that's going to be a whole different story because they'll have better stats, better gear, better abilities, but for now, I think B tier is where the Dark Knight's going to sit. Call him a Bark Knight, I guess. Make him a wolf man. Put a little, like, Blythe wolf head on him. All right, moving from some of the generic classes, we have a just slew of unique classes here, but I wanted to include them because we talked about Lord and Paladin in the previous episode, and these are all still classes, so I think it's fair to talk about them here. Priestess is a fun one. I have been a little bit back and forth on where I want to put Priestess, Scarlet's unique class. But even though it's got the dual capability of dealing damage and healing, I honestly don't know that I want to put it in S tier. And the reason for that is because part of Priestess's kit is that she wants to be the target of other characters' support skills. So you're going to need some particular other classes in her squad for her to reach her full potential. Something like a Cleric or a Radiant Knight, they will just make whatever class or whatever squad they're in better. They will just have that raw support. They don't need anything else to be supporting them to make their supporting better, you know? And I think that kind of drags Priestess down a tier. Like, yes, she's able to deal damage. Yes, she's able to heal. And yes, her damage and healing are both really nice, especially her ability to remove buffs is awesome. But it's more focused. It's more particular. You aren't always going to want that. You're not always going to need that. You know, sometimes if you want a healer, you just want a healer. Just a raw healer and support unit. Priestess's Valor skills, of course, are very, very strong. The ability to resurrect allies, the ability to heal allies, very good. And I do think that is something that's worth considering. But I've found Priestess does need a little bit more going for it to really reach its full potential. I think that drags it down to A tier. Now, something that does not need anything else to reach its max potential and which needs no further introduction is Dark Marquess. It's an S tier. It's just S tier, easily. Like, no question. No doubt in my mind that Dark Marquess is an S tier class. The fact that Berengaria's introduction is her alone with no other supporting members of her squad facing off against multiple enemy units and clearing them with ease should tell you everything that you need to know about how ridiculous Dark Marquess is. The stuns, the AP and PP generation and drain, oh my god, the fact that she can just completely tank enemy attack and initiative right at the start of the fight for free, the fact that she stuns in an AoE, the fact that she attacks in an AoE, and all of her skills synergize with each other. The more attacks she gets in, the more damage she's doing while still continuing to stun. And that's to say nothing of the fact that she can self-heal through Sanguine Pursuit. It's insane. Like, you can put Berengaria into any squad, and that squad will be better for her presence. Just for the raw damage and stuns that she's putting out, before you even consider anything else that she has going on. Like, if I had an S+ tier, Berengaria Dark Marquess would be above most of these other classes. It's absolutely insane. No question about it. Like, just the existence of Dark Marquess legitimately makes me want to bump all other classes down just to have the Dark Marquess tier. It's insane. We're not going to do that because I don't think that really is needed. Like, Dark Marquess is an outlier in its strength. I don't think the whole tier list should be warped around that, especially because you only get the one, right? Like, this is not a generic class that you can just make endless legions of Dark Marquesses. Like, you can't do that. So I think that as a limiting factor keeps it from being like SSS plus double ultra 5-star legendary rare tier. I think S tier is fine, but it's certainly no lower than S tier. No doubt about that. Dark Marquess is crazy. Now, Crusader is one that it's rough because, again, like, you talk about Crusader right after Dark Marquess, and like, Crusader is not as good as Dark Marquess because nothing is. But Crusader is also really, really good. So I don't think I can put it anywhere other than S tier. The fact that you get 2 shields, the fact that you can deal with both armored units and flying units, the fact that you get follow-up attacks that then also get stronger as your health gets lower. There's a lot going for Crusader that, again, makes it good in pretty much any squad. Like, yeah, it's going to want some support, it's going to want some healing, but that's most squads. I can't knock Crusader for just wanting to have some healing somewhere in her unit, you know? Even self-healing with something like one of the various guard skills that heal or something like that. Like, that's really all she needs, and you're going to have that in most units. So yeah, I think just the sheer versatility of Crusader makes her an easy S tier pick. And then again, like, if you want to look at her Valor skills and everything, like, her Valor skills are quite nice. She's a little slow, something like, you know, equivalent to a Sellsword or something like that, but not anything super detrimental. And the fact that she's not, I don't believe, considered an armored unit compared to something like a fighter is honestly rude for fighters because she's just as armored as they are. But yeah, no, Crusader is an excellent class, and I do think you can be pretty happy no matter where you put her in your units, and that makes for an easy S tier. In fact, really looking at it, the next 3 classes, I may as well just drop them all into S tier now, because Prince is great, Elven Augur is great, and Elven Sybil is great. This is kind of a recurring thing with the unique classes in Unicorn Overlord. Like, when your generic classes are already so good, the majority of your unique classes are going to be even better. And that's not a bad thing. It just makes tier lists like this look super top heavy because like all of these classes are really, really strong for one reason or another. And I think it speaks to Unicorn Overlord's overall game design, honestly, that like the game can still feel like it has challenge and can still give you so many different tactical options to explore, despite so many things being so powerful. And it's kind of sad looking at Scarlet's Priestess down in A tier here. But I mean, I really do think like you can put a Prince into any squad. It's kind of the nature of Prince is he can buff whatever it is that squad wants to do with ease and just make them better. Like, that's awesome. That's great. Elven Augur and Elven Sybil having the ability to heal, deal massive amounts of damage, and kind of like Dark Marquess are completely self-synergistic by buffing their own attacks, their own healing, just by using their own stuff. The fact that everything they do is like AoE, they can block, like they've got so much going for them. Like, I'm honestly surprised at how durable Augur and Sybil are on the front line. Like, they are weirdly durable for such scantily clad elven mages, but they just don't care. They don't take hits. They can heal. They can block. They can deal damage. They're great. All three of these absolutely deserve to be in S tier alongside Dark Marquess and Crusader. I really can't imagine putting them any lower, and like the moment you get them, they're just going to be good for the rest of the game. They're only going to get stronger. You're only going to get better abilities for them, and like I know people were talking in my my Let's Talk About Elves video, like, oh, Elven Augur and Elven Sybil are phenomenal. Like, you can't to say that Elven units are bad or like limited because you can put them in any squad. And I was focusing more on Fencer and Archer there than Sybil and Augur as the generic classes. But yeah, Augur and Sybil are just insane. And Prince is equally, it's not the damage dealer class, but it doesn't need to be because it just does so much for its allies. And has Valor skills that can grant active and passive points. It's nuts. It's nuts. These are all S tier classes. There's really nothing else to discuss, I don't think. Now, finally, we come to Elven Fencer and Elven Archer, speaking of the last two classes for this iteration of the tier list. And again, this is one that's going to get me into hot water, I think. Because again, everyone talks about just how powerful the Elven units are. And they are. I'm not disputing that. They've got a lot of versatility. And that's kind of the idea of this tier list is, well, how versatile is a class and how much is it going to bring to the unit that you add it to. However, the issue with that for me is that with too much versatility comes an increase in complexity as well. And while complexity can be good and can lead to strength because it gives you so much that you can do once you lean into it, it kind of, for me, falls into the same idea of something like Sellsword or Dark Knight, right? Now, Elven Archer and Elven Fencer are, by their very nature, going to be quote-unquote better than Sellsword or Dark Knight or a lot of the generic classes that we have listed here because they're considered promoted units, right? So they've got better stats, they've got extra active points, they've got extra passive points, they've got access to all of their abilities as they level without the need of a promotion, so they're just going to be out of the box stronger than something like a Sellsword or a Dark Knight. Like, I hear that. However, you want particular setups for both of these classes. Elven Fencer, if you're going to be rocking tomes on them to give magic conferral, they're going to want a team that wants that. Something that is going to have big AoE, like a Gladiator or a Griffin Knight or a Dark Marquess or whatever. Something that they can add a bunch of damage to just to make that effect stronger. Conversely, they want to be really high level so that they can actually be successful evade tanks, and even then you're going to want them to be set up a particular way to do that. Or they're going to want to be in a team that is going to get the most benefit out of their anti-cavalry capabilities or the stuns that they bring to the table with things like their Lightning Blade. And to me, the fact that you have to build around them so much brings them down a bit. And again, like, I don't want people to try and tell me like, oh, but like they're so powerful, like their ceiling of power is so high. And it is. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely is. But remember, we're looking here at what goes into a unit, and it just right out of the box makes that unit stronger. Like, I wouldn't have for example, the Trinity Rain build S tier in an equivalent tier list, like a unit build tier list, because it's something that is very particular. It needs to be set up to work a particular way. If you take any one component of that out, if something happens, if you take damage you weren't expecting to, or a particular counter comes along, the whole thing crumbles. The more complex a machine is, the more prone it is to failure. That's the way I'm viewing all of these classes. And for me, that means that Elven Fencer is going to be no higher than A tier. I want to put it at B tier, but the issue for me is that Elven Archer is going to be one tier lower than that. And I don't think that Elven Archer belongs in C tier. So I think I'm going to put Elven Fencer in A tier. Again, it's good. And like, you can put it into a squad and it will help a lot. Like, just the stuns off Lightning Blade and the damage of Lightning Blade will be nice. So I think that helps it to stick in A tier fairly well. But if you really want to draw out its full potential, you have to do a lot of tweaking and you have to make the squad accommodate it. And that goes against the spirit of this tier list a little bit to me. Now, Elven Archer has a lot of the same arguments, so I won't reiterate all of them. The thing about Elven Archer is it's even harder to get it to reach its full potential. They are very strong. However, their nature as a split physical magical attacker means that their ranged assist is bad. You just literally don't want to use these for ranged assist. You can maybe have them in a ranged assist squad to boost the damage of something like a hunter or an arbalist that will actually do damage with it. But so the fact that they kind of, like, one of their key things in their leader effect is just straight up bad, you don't want to use them for it, is a big feels bad. And then one of their strongest factors in their selfless heal, you need to have a very particular setup to make happen. And when you can do it, it's not that hard to do. You know, I'm a big fan of my Field Medic Thieves that can then use a Battlefield Medicine on the Elven Archer at the end of the fight to then trigger their selfless heal and heal the whole party. And it is good, don't get me wrong. But you're dedicating a decent chunk of 2 whole members of a unit that only has up to 5 to begin with to make that happen. And so that's kind of limiting. They're really, really good when they're good. But I think the reason a lot of people felt bad about them when they first started getting their hands on them was because they just don't fit well into units at large. And that makes them limiting. I think that is going to put them in B tier along with some of these other units that, or classes that really want a particular unit setup to do what they're going to do and to do it well. Again, like, to me, Sellsword is one of the actual most powerful classes in the game, just because of the whole following slash spam. And then the raw damage that they can bring to the table later. Same type of thing with Elven Archer. It's really good. It might be one of the best support classes in the game if you utilize it right, in the right circumstances. But in a overall view of the sandbox of Unicorn Overlord, like, I could just take a cleric and slap it into a squad, and it's going to get the job done 9 times out of 10. And that makes it a better class, in my opinion, even if the overall power of something else is better. This episode is all of the promoted classes in Unicorn Overlord, and there are quite a bit of them, so I'm going to try to move through this fairly quickly. So without further ado, let's get to High Lord. High Lord is an archetypical example of the overpowered main character. Very much the opposite of many mid-of-the-series Fire Emblem Lords, reminiscent of characters like Sigurd from Genealogy of the Holy War, or more recently, the Avatar characters from Awakening, Fates, Three Houses, Engage, etc., that all tend to be extremely, extremely powerful, and High Lord is no exception. There's really, literally no other place it could be than S tier. Like, it does everything that base Lord does with its tankiness and its self-healing, while adding in a ton of different damage options and overall just being extremely strong. This, of course, is before we even consider the fact that it gets unique equipment like the Holy Unicorn Blade that makes it even stronger. It's just a phenomenal piece. There's no getting around it. High Lord is awesome. You have a mount, you have AoE attacks, you have tanking, you have self-healing. It does it all. And I really don't think I need to say much else beyond that. High Lord is just gross. Moving on to Vanguard. Vanguard is a very nice class and is a very nice promotion from the middle-of-the-road fighter. It is going in A tier. It is not an S tier class. It doesn't have phenomenal damage. It doesn't have ways to deal with things like debuffs and everything. But raw tanking potential, it is very, very good. The fact that it has extra AP and passive points from being a promoted class, the fact that it gets the defender attack that allows it to get extra defense to help it continue to tank for its allies, the increased stats that it has in general making it tankier. It's just the boost that fighter needed to go from good to really good, if not great. I love Vanguard. I'm more than happy to have Vanguards in my squads. They have a lot of versatility, a lot of utility, and yeah, while they're not going to be dealing massive AoE damage or taking debuffs off of your allies, if they can prevent some of those things from happening to your allies in the first place, I mean, that's just as good, right? There are a lot of people who very much look down on Vanguards, and I think that's very unfair to the class because they're just good, man, and I think people are a little bit prejudiced towards them because early game fighter is in a very tough position until it gets better gear and better skills. But Vanguard, A tier class, absolutely, you can fight me on that. Moving on to Sergeant. Sergeant, much like Soldier, is an S tier class, absolutely. The combos that it enables, the damage output that it has, the fact that it can support allies through healing, giving them guaranteed criticals, the fact that it has lance attacks, so it's extra effective against cavalry. There's just a lot going on for sergeants. They even have their own unique throwable flame lance that gives them a fire attack that can burn. Like, that's awesome. They're really, really strong. I'm really not surprised that the power of Soldier continues on to Sergeant. And frankly, I need to play with them way more. I only had one Sergeant available to me in my initial run of the game, and she was great. I mean, Sol was a phenomenal Sergeant, and she enabled my units to do a lot more than they otherwise would have been able to do. And I can only imagine once you get down into the combo potential that scales even more insanely. I love them. They're great. They belong in S tier because they can pretty much fit into any class or any unit, and that's largely what I'm looking at a lot of these classes for. Next up, we have Viking, and as much as I love them, I think Viking has to go in A tier, not S tier. They are very, very good at what they do. What they do is just destroy enemy defenses and overall cause a lot of problems. The issue is that they are quite vulnerable, and later in the game where you're going to be using them, that actually can become quite a problem for them. And I think that does actually knock them down a tier compared to the S tier that Housecarls occupy early in the game. Remember, we have to view these classes, especially the promoted classes, within the context of when you're going to be using them. Like, yeah, if you had a Viking at the time that you have Housecarls, they'd be S tier, no question. But in the mid to late game where you're actually going to have access to them, not quite as much. So why is this an issue? There are so many AoE attacks, so many different methods for a delicate unit like this to get blown up out of nowhere with no recourse to defend themselves. It becomes a problem. Like, they need to have something that is going to be able to protect them from attacks like that, say like a Vanguard, or maybe even like an Elven Fencer that's going to protect them from ranged attacks, things like that, that can then allow them to survive to do what it is that they want to do. Once they can do what they want to do, huge, phenomenal. The absolute shredding of physical defense that these guys do cannot be overstated. It's great for any physical attack-based class. But that's the other issue. If you're doing anything with magical attacks, then Vikings suddenly become far less useful. Like, yes, the defense shred that they do is going to further empower their own attacks, but in a class-based, unit squad-based system like Unicorn Overlord is, just being beneficial for yourself is not enough. It is not sufficient. So in any sort of squad that is going to be relying on doing more magic damage than not, the Viking loses so much from their capabilities. They're still solid, like their Warhorn ability making all physical attacks. Actually, I think it is just all physical attacks. Yeah, their Warhorn ability making attacks unguardable is huge, but again, like, they have a niche that they're in. And it's the fact that they're so good in that niche that keeps them higher than, like, B or even, probably not C, but B on the tier list. That's very, very good for them, but they still can't quite broach S in the way that some other classes can. Now, we want to talk about a class that's disappointing to me. We got to talk about Swordmaster. Swordmaster, I almost want to put them in D tier, but I don't think they're quite that bad. Yeah, I can't put them any higher than C tier, and even that feels bad, man. By the time you're using Swordmasters regularly, they need so much to be able to actually do anything due to their overall low damage output, Death of 1,000 Cuts style, that I just don't like them. Like, I can see that they have potential. Don't get me wrong. Doing some, like, lucky coins, Sniper's Amber Lens, guaranteed hit, guaranteed crit shenanigans with attack boosts and defense nerfs to enemies, like with a Viking. Like, there is potential there, to be sure. But I really feel like the class needed to be getting some form of attack boost from their second sword. If you didn't know, Swordmasters can equip 2 swords, and they get all of the like special abilities from their secondary sword, like if it has a unique attack or if it adds accuracy, crit, anything like that. But its raw damage and its base crit rate don't apply. And that is brutal, because Swordmasters have such abysmally low base attack that it makes it really, really hard for them to actually do the damage that you want or need them to do. And when they can deal damage to squishy targets, they do shred, but that's anything. Like, you don't need a Swordmaster to shred a squishy. Anything that's hitting it with physical attacks will shred it. That's not a benefit to them. So I know there's going to be people that say, well, there's all these different things you can do with them. There's all these different combos you can do with them. Oh, it's my favorite class. Oh, they're very strong. And that's fine. And, like, yeah, if I spend more time with them and I really theory craft around them, maybe I would want to bump them up a tier or two. But they just failed to impress me in the way that most other classes did. And that is just such a shame. That is such a shame, man. So, yeah, I cannot put these elegant yet kind of weak-wristed, limp-wristed warriors any higher than C tier, unfortunately. You know, maybe it's just biased because Fire Emblem Swordmasters are so busted, but yeah, I don't know. There's just more that they could have done, I feel like. So, C tier is where they're going to reside. Now, something that definitely belongs in higher than C tier, it's the Lance Connect. Now, again, as much as I love them, I don't think I can put them in S tier. Much like I love the base sellsword, but don't think it could go higher than B tier. They're really, really good at the one thing that they do, and that's smashing really, really, really hard. But they do want a particular setup. They want something tanky in the front line that is going to be able to survive so they can continue to do following slashes. They want to ensure that they aren't blinded or in some other way afflicted, debuffed, whatever, so that they can get big attacks like Bastard's Cross in. And kind of similar to Viking, they want to be in a very physical-focused team. And while they are disgustingly good, again, my favorite squad in the game was 3 Lance Connects, a Viking, and a Legionnaire, and they destroyed everything. They do still have their limitations. If you're fighting anything flying, they're going to struggle. If you're fighting anything with magic damage, they could wind up having problems before they even get their attacks out. If you're fighting anything that's going to put any afflictions on them and you don't have a reliable way to remove it, they just get shut down. They have their problems, for sure, and as such, they can't quite hit S rank, but God, they're phenomenal. And, like, A rank is nothing to sneeze at here. Really, none of these tiers are anything to sneeze at, really, but A rank in particular, still more than happy to have in my retinue for sure. So it's a happy place for me to have Lance Connect. I love them. They're definitely my favorite class in the game. But looking at it objectively, I cannot put them in S tier. Now, Legionnaires. Legionnaires are interesting. I put Hoplites in C because they were very, very basic. And Legionnaires do still feel that way to a degree. But something that makes me bump them up a tier to B, and I think that's where they're going to go, is the fact that they do give such strong defenses for entire rows of your allies. And how, especially once you have access to all of their skills and some of the really disgustingly strong great shields in the game, they can actually become nigh impenetrable without very specific counters, like something with like a hammer, you know? And that is not nothing. Man, like, Legionnaires are really, really good at what they do. It's just, again, you don't want them in every unit. They still completely fold to magic enemies unless you've completely spec them into resisting magic damage, in which case they'll be okay against it, but, like, why do that at that point? Just pack something like a Sainted Knight. Hell, bring a Sainted Knight with your Legionnaire, and then that problem will be solved, but still, like, you can't just slap them into any given unit and call it a day. So they're really good where they're good, and there's absolutely times where I've been so happy that I had a Legionnaire with my sellswords, with my Lance Connects, because he was just impenetrable. But there are also going to be times where they weigh you down, they slow you down, they don't deal any damage. I dropped all attacks off my Legionnaire by the end of the game and made him just a pure wall. It's gonna be not useful all the time, and as such, I don't think I can put them any higher than B tier. Now, Berserkers, my hot take of the last couple episodes was putting Gladiator in A and keeping it in A, and congratulations to all the naysayers out there. That is exactly where Berserker is going as well. I truly, truly feel that Berserkers are very undersold as a class. They're actually fairly versatile. You can put them in the back line and just use them as raw damage dealers. You can put them in the front line and beef up their healing capabilities, their defensive, to actually make them like pretty good HP tanks. And the damage output that they can have is so gross. People are like, well, yeah, but the accuracy issues, whatever. But like, they really don't have as much of an accuracy issue as you might think. Just being able to slap a pair of spectacles onto them will fix a lot of their accuracy problems just on their own without requiring any other specific classes in the unit. Like, going in with Bruno and just grand smashing everything and rarely having it miss was such a joy. Like, Berserkers have, I would say, one of the highest ceilings for just raw damage capabilities. If you get them kitted out with any sort of good gear, you give them any sort of stat boosts, or again, have any sort of units or any sort of classes in their unit that are going to make them more capable, give them a guaranteed hit, give them a guaranteed crit, put some sort of magic effect on their attacks, they're going to crush half of the enemy unit, if not more, with one attack. They are awesome, and they're really good at keeping themselves alive in the process. Hell, by the end of the game, they have an ability that's going to heal themselves and give them an attack boost, which is insane, and you can guarantee that they survive an attack and get extra AP so they can come in swinging with one final giant crush. Like, they really, it's a high-risk, high-reward playstyle, and I absolutely understand that, but because of this being a unit-based system in the way that it is, the versatility that Berserkers have as either a frontliner or a backliner, and all the different ways that you can support them to be able to do so much so easily, makes them A tier for me. You know, an easy comparison is Swordmaster. It's like, well, why do I have Swordmaster in C tier when you could say you could use a lot of the same arguments? The issue is that I feel like Swordmasters have a much lower floor that you have to work up from compared to Berserker. Berserker doesn't need much to get going, and then once they're going, they are devastating. Swordmasters, in my experience, you need to put so much more effort into just to make them do what you want them to do, and then they still get completely stonewalled by anything with any sort of defense. I'm not even talking like Vanguards and Legionnaires. Like, a Great Knight can just tank anything that the Swordmaster is going to throw at them unless you have a bunch of different buffs and debuffs in there. You don't need that with Berserker, in my experience. So yeah, I think they're phenomenal. I think anyone that is not using Berserkers or thinks that they're a bad class, you are underserving yourself from the hysterical capabilities of these absolutely brutally massive lads. Go give them another look. I promise you, they're awesome. Moving on to Breaker. Now, this is probably one of the biggest glow-ups in the entire game. I had Warriors in C rank, and I stand by that. I almost want to drop some of these down. I feel like I can't readjust anything until we get to the end of the tier list. But, like, I really kind of want to drop Warrior and Sword Fighter down to D for the early game. But we'll hold off on that. Breaker, though. Breaker is incredible. Breaker is easily an A. Potentially, I almost want to say S, honestly. Like, the insane damage output that Breaker has, and localized completely to themselves between Enrage and Row Smash, you can put them in any squad. And just the nature of that squad getting attacked is going to put the Breaker's damage so high that when they come out swinging with that one swing, it's over for like 2 or 3 enemies. Plus, with their anti-armor capabilities, they get access to axes that have a lot of good strengths. You know, I think I got to put them in S tier. They're really strong. I only had one Breaker through my entire initial run of the game, but I was very, very impressed by her once she promoted and actually got going. Like, it was insane. I didn't need to be doing anything to her. I gave her her gear, I slapped her in the back line of a squad and just let her go, and she just dismantled things with that giant meat tenderizer of a hammer that she has. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable with S tier. These are just some of the best damage output units in the game. They are entirely self-sufficient. I love them. I can't wait to use more of them. Breakers are super sick. It has to be an S tier unit. Moving on to snipers. Snipers, I really like hunters, but snipers kind of started to fall off for me a bit. I don't think they're quite C tier, but I don't like them as much as I like hunters in their contextual use cases. So it almost it almost does make me want to bump Swordmaster down to D tier. And because, like, honestly, I like Sword Fighter more than Sword Master in their respective tiers. Oh man, am I really gonna do this? I think I am. Because, like, snipers definitely fell off for me compared to other archers, but I don't think I can have sniper and Swordmaster in the same tier. So yeah, I think Swordmaster's got to get bumped down, and sniper's gonna go here in C tier. Snipers, to me, are useful, but nowhere near as useful as I expected. Primarily because their biggest use case is for dealing with enemy flyers and enemies that have high evade or attacks that allow them, or abilities that allow them to guaranteed evade something. The thing is, by the time you're rocking these promoted classes, you have a lot of tools to be able to deal with those things, and at that point, the sniper's biggest niche is lost. From there on, they're basically just ranged damage dealers, and there's a lot of those. Like, things like a Griffin Master can basically do everything that a sniper can do, except for having guaranteed True Strike, and there's a lot of different ways to give guaranteed True Strike, and different units that can do it as well. So, they're not bad by any means, but it would not be my first choice, even among archers. So I think contextually, sniper is going to be C tier. They are not bad. They have their use cases. They will get the job done if you let them, especially if you use things like arrow rain. But there's just better options out there. There are just better options out there. And we're about to talk about one, actually. So, shield shooters. These are an S tier class. Easily. They can tank. They can dodge tank. They can heal allies with a few different methods. They can deal massive damage, even higher to enemy flyers. They can poison. They have a follow-up attack. They do it all, and they look good doing it as well. Like, there's not that much more I need to say about shield shooters, honestly. They just kick so much ass, man. Like, shield shooters are awesome. They are so versatile. They're happy in any squad. They can fill so many different niches and not really be any worse off for filling any of them than a more dedicated unit. Like, they'll lose some utility compared to, like, when they're healing to a priest or a cleric or a bishop or whatever, sure. But they're going to get the job done in most use cases. So I think they're phenomenal. I want so many more shield shooters in future runs. They're great. They're in S tier. All right, got to pick this up a little bit. So, rogues. Rogues, much like snipers, actually fell off a lot for me. I think they are a C tier class. I have other evade tanks that I like more. The ability to steal passive points is still useful, but not as useful as it is in the early game. Their damage output is terrible. Their ability to poison is nice, but there are other options for it. Their biggest utility is just having the guaranteed evade, but that's way less useful when you've got full units of enemies. Oftentimes with row attacks, they're just burning evades incidentally, you know? More often than not, I was actually using my rogues as backline field medics that could also toss out some poison or steal some passive points here and there, and they were fine. Again, like, they were okay, but there was just other classes that I preferred to use. It's a shame, because I love thieves in the early game, and again, I don't think that rogues are bad, but there's just other ways to go about it for me. So yeah, C tier class. Great Knights. Great Knights are insane. They are an S tier class. They bump out Knights. They don't bump out Knights, but they are one tier higher than Knights because they are so damn tanky and because their damage output goes through the roof so much. The fact that they're able to buff ally cavalry units, that fact that they get like insane like row pursuits that pierce column pursuits that pierce, like, it's so disgusting. Pile thrust is ridiculous. Like, As raw damage units, Great Knights and Breakers, man, are truly, truly horrifying. They're cavalry, so they're fast. They've got the shields. They're pretty tanky. I love them. Absolutely an S-tier class, bar none. Sainted Knight, also an S-tier class alongside Radiant Knight, no question. If Radiant Knights were already S-tier and Sainted Knights are literally just more of the same but better. Like, they're one of the only examples in the game of a class that literally power creeps itself. They get their ability, like Saint Strike or whatever it is. That is just their base Hacha ability, but just stronger. It costs the same amount of AP, it gets the same bonus effects as the base version, but hits more, deals more damage, and has extra effects. Like, it's literally just power creeping itself. They're an S-tier class. They're absolutely disgusting. They're tanky. They deal good damage. They have great magical defense. They can heal and protect their allies. There's no getting around it. Sainted Knights are awesome. Doom Knights. This one was... I have debated a lot with myself about this one, because I also think Doom Knights are an S-tier class, which is a nice jump from the B tier that Dark Knight was in, because they get a mix of magical and physical. They can burn. They can do all of these row attacks. Their damage output is gross, especially with their, Diabolic Pact that can tank their HP to increase their damage. And as a promoted class, they've got so much more HP to work with, so many more stats to work with. The whole thing just comes together so much better than Dark Knight. And they're just raw versatility with the fact that they can deal magical and physical damage and also poison. They go in S tier. They're not the single highest damage in the game from what I've seen, but that doesn't matter. Like, they're able to do so much. And again, as cavalry, like, they've got a lot of versatility as well. They get bonus damage against infantry. They're just really, really, really good. So, yeah, I think Doom Knights have a nice glow up from B tier as well. They're awesome. Bishops. Bishops, I think, are going in A tier. They don't fall any further than that compared to the cleric that was in S. But by the time you've got bishops, you do have a nice variety of other support units, including healing units, that make it a little bit harder to vie for that top slot. And they also don't have some of the other nice capabilities that other support units have. They've got no damage. Literally, they can not attack in any way, shape, or form, which is not unique to them, but still. They've got, like, good healing. They've got the ability to remove debuffs, and they can resurrect, which is nice. But resurrections are actually less useful than I would have expected when things are coming back at 1 HP, you know? Like, you have methods of healing them once they're back up, that's great, but, like, Bishop just does what Cleric does, but a little more. And when you've got so many other crazy options flying around in the latter game, with all these different promoted classes and everything, that isn't always enough compared to the overwhelming power that Cleric has in the early game. Like, if you've got a squad with a Cleric in it, they're nigh indestructible. Not the case with a Bishop. They're still really annoying to get through, but it is way easier to do. So yeah, I think they do fall down to A tier. Warlock. Warlock is actually tough because I've literally never used one. It is the only class in the game I've never used, and that is because no one in the first campaign requested a wizard. I only had Aush, and I did use Aush, but he never got the chance to be promoted. And as in my other runs that I've started, I haven't gotten to the point where I can get promotions either. So I can only go off of what I've seen with enemy warlocks, and I think that puts them squarely in B tier. Again, this is hard to say since I've not used them myself, but they kind of fall into the similar situation that snipers are in, where they just are damage dealers, and that's it. Like, it's not bad. B tier is perfectly middle of the road. Like, they get the job done. They do what they need to do. But there comes a point where you only need to deal so much damage, and there's a lot of different ways to deal damage, and as such, they kind of are hindered by their lack of utility and versatility, and also the fact that they are so damn squishy, and without dedicated support, they're just going to crumble. So this is a very tenuous rating. Take this one with a grain of salt. Once I use more warlocks in future runs, yeah, I might have to revisit the way I think about them. But for now, this is what it feels like to me. I never felt threatened by a warlock, really, put it that way. So they're going to sit in B tier. Now, Sorceress, on the other hand, absolutely continues to rock in S tier. They're just doing everything that witches were doing, but better. They've got so many different good capabilities. The fact that they can quick cast makes them great combo dealers, or combo wielders, I should say. They're just so good. Like, if Witch is going to be an S tier, Sorceress is going to be an S tier. The ability to deal really good magic damage, the ability to freeze, the ability to quick cast, the ability to give allies guaranteed hits. Ice Coffin is disgusting. Like, very strong class. I've always been happy with them. Whenever I'm using a unit that has a Sorceress in it, I'm happier for that Sorceress being there. And to me, that means that it is easily an S tier class. Druid is also an S tier class. Like, Druid is just so insane. Having a Druid in any given squad is going to so severely hamper the enemy. It's not, like, again, it almost feels broken. Like, I think I said that about Shaman as well. It almost feels broken just how disgustingly strong they are. And the fact that they get a start of battle ability that just tanks enemies' abilities to function, including their initiative, into the dirt, like, man, it's hard to get around that. You know, anyone who's fought a squad of berserkers, or I think the fight that everyone complains about is 2 shamans and 2 gladiators, not berserkers. But either way, 2 giant beefy boys and 2 druids in the back, nerfing everyone's attacks that the beefy boys just heal over and over without ever coming even close to dying, and then cleave your entire team in half. It's gross for a reason, and that reason is shamans. So yeah, druid is S tier, absolutely. I'm always happy to have a druid in any given squad. Wyvern Master. Wyvern Master is interesting. I do like them. I did have a Wyvern Master in my Elaine squad for pretty much the entire run. However, I don't think they're as good as Griffin Masters. And spoiler alert, Griffin Masters are going to be an S tier easily. So I think Wyvern Master is going to be an A tier. They kind of have a little bit of a weird identity crisis where they get like this fire breath where they can burn things, which is like fine. It's not as damaging as something like the Doom Knight's flame attack. They have more like column piercing, which is not as useful as row attacks. They have a sort of like weird dodge, parry, counter thing going on, which can be good, but becomes basically useless against anything with high defense. Like, they're good, don't get me wrong. They're not anything lower than A tier, but I don't think I can put them in S tier. Like, they're resoundingly good, and that's it. I do like what they have going on, for sure, but they do get overshadowed a bit by Griffin Master, and I think we're just going to go and move on and talk about them, because really, basically what I'm doing already. Griffin Master, as I mentioned, easy S tier. Like, bar none, Griffin Master is so gross. The fact that they have a ranged row attack that deals massive damage and also drains actions off of any enemies that were full health and they got hit by the attack if they managed to survive it in the first place. Like, bro, what? Like, the skill is mistranslated in-game to say that the Griffin loses an action point if they use that attack when they're at full HP. It was, like, a little weird, but fair, because this attack is so strong that potentially having it cost 3 AP instead of 2 unless you've taken a hit seems like a fair balancing move. And that is incorrect. You literally drain the AP off of the enemy instead. Like, bro, I thought the mistake was fair, and you just made it so much more powerful. Like, what in the good goddamn? That is insane. Yeah, just the evasion, the self-healing, the ability to grant initiative to their allies, all of the different row attacks. Like, Griffin Masters have one dud ability in their attack that deals damage based on, like, half of their HP or whatever, but that's fine. They literally do not need that attack, and they still crush everything anyway. They are disgusting. They're a great flying unit. They're always a joy to have in any given team just because their damage output is so high. Griffin Masters are phenomenal, and they are an easy S tier. High Priestess. This is another weird one. As similar to Warlock, I almost wish I had a not applicable tier because I haven't really used High Priestess at all. Like, I can theoretically talk about the skills and why they'd be useful and all that type of stuff, and I do that in the class overview, but I've never actually used it in practice, so it's hard to say definitively what makes it good and or bad. With that in mind, though, it's basically a super bishop that can attack. So I think at baseline, it can't be below bishop, so I'm going to put High Priestess in A. By all means, if you disagree with that sentiment, let me know in the comments. If you think it should be higher, lower, whatever, strike up a conversation there, because, like, unlike with Warlock that I can at least see in action against me, I've never played with High Priestess. I've never seen High Priestess in action. I just know, based off of Scarlet's base class, what it does generally loosely, and it is good. So I think A is where it's going to sit. Let me know what you think about that. We're going to move on. And speaking of moving on, we are hitting the last class here, Valkyria. This is the unique class of Virginia and Queen Elenia. It's very, very good. Yeah, I haven't used promoted Virginia much at all, but of course we've seen Queen Elenia, and she's really, really strong. Just the counters are great. The self-healing is great. The double shields give you a lot of versatility when it comes to different effects that you can have. The fact that you can counter flyers, armors, get big, like, triple combo attacks in there. It's a phenomenal class. I think it's S tier, absolutely. You know, it's not as powerful as something like, say, Great Lord or High Lord. Really, if I had, like, an S+ tier, that's probably where High Lord and High Lord alone would be. But Valkyria is awesome. It cannot be anywhere lower than A tier, I don't think. It's just is way too versatile, way too tanky, and has way too good damage output to be anywhere else. We have technically 12 classes to go through here today, so this should not take very long. However, there are a couple of amendments and statements that I want to make right at the top here. First of all, as a reminder, this tier list is based on how useful I feel each class is in fulfilling its role in a given squad. That is the primary basis upon which I am ranking every class. Some of you have disagreed with a lot of my placements, and that's totally fine. That's totally understandable. However, a lot of those disagreements have been based on criteria that we're not looking at here, that I'm not looking at here. So I just wanted to restate that now. That is the primary metric that we are measuring things on here. Second, a lot of people were saying that I should move the base classes out of the tiers that they are in. Now that the promoted classes are in, I am not going to be doing that. The reason I'm not going to be doing that is because A, some classes actually move down a tier once they promote, because by the time you're using them in their promoted state, they're not as useful as they once were. And two, I want to be able to show where base classes are useful when you get them and are primarily using them as well. So that way people who might be looking at this in the future have an idea of, hey, okay, well, this class is really good early in the game. Maybe it falls off a little bit later, but I can use it for now or whatever, you know? So I'm not going to be changing that. Third, I will be doing any sort of reorganizing at the end of this episode. So if there's something that I feel needs to move up, needs to move down, I will review the whole tier list and we will make those adjustments accordingly. And finally, Swordmaster is the exception here. When I made the previous entry of the tier list, Swordmaster was bad, and I maintain that. I don't care if it had a good, like, parry evade build. Half of its entire kit was about dealing damage, and it was bad at doing that. However, we got the recent patch that made it so that Swordmasters and also Valkyria get half of the bonus of their secondary weapon or shield. And that has made Swordmaster far, far better. So I'm going to actually move them preemptively up 2 tiers from D to B. They kind of fall into the, get out of here, GeForce Experience in-game overlay. We're not in a game. Go away. Shoot. Shoot. There we go. They still are just fine. They're not bad anymore by any means. But much like Warlock, they are really good at dealing damage in certain scenarios. Just like Legionnaires, they're really good at being tanks, quote-unquote, in certain scenarios. But I don't think that they're as versatile or useful as the A-rank classes, and they are certainly not an S-rank class. They are way better than they were before. I like them far more now than I used to. They are actually useful. B tier is perfectly middle of the road, perfectly fine. Werewolf is, I think, similar to Swordmaster, a very solid middle-of-the-road B tier class. I really like them aesthetically. I like the way that they play. I like the whole, like, getting stronger as enemies' HP goes down, or there's fewer enemies on the board, all that type of good stuff. And I do like that they have a pretty damn strong row attack that deals really good damage. However, they do need support and setup to be as effective as they can be, and they do have a little bit of an issue of being a win more, again, to borrow some Magic terminology, a win more class. because they become the best when you're already winning. So if you're in the point where you're already winning, you might not necessarily need that extra push. Maybe you do. Maybe you do need that little bit of an extra push to take it from just wounding an enemy squad to outright destroying an enemy squad. That's entirely possible. But it's not as useful as it could be. That said, I also don't think that they are as bad as people make them out to be. I certainly don't think they're the worst class in the game. Their boosts that they get at nighttime are phenomenal, including that speed boost that puts them pretty strong when you're using them at night. And I've used werewolves to great effect. I have a werewolf in my Lex kind of all-rounder team that I recently showed off a video for. And he does very well. I think he was even shredding feather shields. So not a bad class by any means. I do like them quite a bit. So I think B rank is exactly where they need to be. No pun intended. Werefoxes. Werefoxes are an interesting one. I don't have as much experience with them as I would like, but my inclination is to put them in A tier. They kind of fall into that same category of class as like your Swordmasters, your Rogues. Swordmaster isn't a scout class, but they still have that dodgy parry sort of effect going on that Rogues have, and then now Werefoxes have as well, where you are evading a lot of attacks, you have abilities to let you evade attacks on top of just having naturally really good evade, things like that. But I feel Werefoxes are just better at the whole evasion thing than Swordmasters are, and they're also better at dealing damage and spreading around status effects, in my opinion, or at least in a more useful way than Rogues are. So I know it's rough having Rogues all the way down in C, but I don't like the way they play once you get to the point where you're using a lot of promoted classes. Whereas Werefoxes, like, the amount of times that I've just had a Werefox sitting on the front line and the whole rest of her squad is gone and she's just still trucking along, dodging every single attack, poisoning everything, blinding everything, dealing good damage. Like, I'm very impressed with the class. Absolutely. I do like it more than Werewolf. I think it has more utility than Werewolf. I think it's a lot easier to throw a Werefox into the front line of a squad and just have it pop off. So, not an S tier class by any means. I don't know that any of the best rules really are, as much as I do really like them. And I do think that they are better than their contemporaries, their human contemporaries, in a lot of ways. But the fact that they do need the nighttime boost, well, they don't need it, but they're at their max potential only half of the time, and that can be limiting for them. But then when they are at that max potential, they are disgusting. So, yeah, I think A is a good spot for Werefox. I really enjoy them. Werebears. These are also A tier, and I know people are going to fight me on this one, but, like, dude. Anyone who has seen my streams who knows Antonio the Werebear, that absolute unit of a bear has tanked such an unholy amount of damage and then clapped back for really good damage in turn. Cements my love for them. I do think they're really, really good. The thing that I like so much about Werebear over something like Legionnaire, and why I think that they deserve to be a slot higher than Legionnaire, is the fact that even though they don't have their own like built-in row protection necessarily, they're still able to protect their allies. You can give them a shield that is going to give them extra protection skills as well, and they're just as, if not more, tanky than Legionnaires are. However, they also have the benefit of kind of being half Berserker, so they actually have a lot of good high-damage AoE attacks that makes it so they're more than just a wall. Like, when you need nothing but the biggest wall possible, then yeah, you're going to want a Legionnaire. That's why I like having a Legionnaire for my Super Tax Bros squad, because he's, like, immovable, especially since I have one of the Super Tax Bros with a magic shield that he can put on the Legionnaire if there's a mage. Werebears aren't quite that durable, but seeing as how you really only in very certain situations want to have an entire slot taken up by something that's essentially doing 0 damage, having a Werebear actually being able to deal not just damage, but like pretty good damage, that's a huge boon for me. Absolutely. I do think that Werebears are very, very strong. Moving on to Were-Owls. This one is one that I was really kind of debating. I was everywhere from B to S with Were-Owls, because they just have so much versatility with them. The fact that they can wield staves means you can use a whole bunch of different types of support builds with them. Being a flying healer gives a ton of utility, especially if you're moving around at night, have them as your squad leader. They've got a nice array of support abilities just built into their kit as well. Defensive stuff, healing stuff, etc. I do really like them. However, I think they're going to fall in B tier. That's kind of where I'm feeling now at the end of the day, because I do like having something that is just going to do more dedicated healing, like, say, having Bishop in A tier. Were Owls, you need to build them a little bit more specifically to do that, and you do have other ways of dealing with the types of problems that Were Owl are going to deal with for you as well. Like, things like Elven Archer can compete with Were Owl for certain facets of what they can do, all that type of stuff. Now, what's nice is you can kind of take the roles of Elven Archer and its support capacities, Bishop and its support capacities, and roll them together into Were Owl. And where you're going to use that, it's going to be very, very nice. But then you have the added issue of, like, well, they're also a flyer, so they can get sniped. They're going to get chunked really hard by things like ranged assist and things like that. So, man, I don't know. It doesn't... No, they're going to go to A tier. They're going to go to A tier. Absolutely. My initial... I'm so conflicted on it. I do think they fall in A tier, actually, thinking about it, because they do have so much that they can do. And that is my biggest thing with this tier list, is like, what utility does a class bring to the table and how well does it fulfill that role? And Were Owl does fulfill its role really, really well. It just has a little bit of a split role, which is kind of a running theme with all the Bestial units. But I think it does perform that role really well. It doesn't reach S tier, but it is good. It is very good, and so I think it does fall in A tier. Maybe I'll wind up changing that by the time we do our wrap-up, but we'll see. Moving on from the Bestrels. Well, actually, no, wait, not moving on from the Bestrels. I messed up my order of things. We have Snow Ranger and Were Lion yet. Okay. Snow Ranger, easy S tier. Like, there's no even trying to get around that, man. Like, Snow Ranger is so hysterically busted. From its damage output to its freeze capabilities, how dodgy it is, it can do anything. It's happy being in any squad. Sorry about that if you noticed the jump there. Our devastatingly loud AC came on while I was recording, and that would have thrown off the whole vibe. So, yeah, there's just any squad that's built around Snow Ranger to make use of its capabilities to the max, especially some sort of freeze squad, is just ridiculously dumb. So, yeah, there's really not even anything else that I have to say about it. Things like triple counter, AoE freezes, good damage output, dodginess. Snow Ranger has it all. She's phenomenal. Easy S tier. No doubt about that. Now, Were Lion. Were Lion is an interesting one because it is literally just Berserker, but better, because it gets nighttime Bestial bonuses. Other than that, it is the exact same class, and on its face, since I have Berserker in A tier, my initial gut reaction would be to put it in S tier, but I don't think that that's valid. I don't think that that's valid because I don't think the Bestial bonus is enough to take what Berserker does and say that it's S tier. I don't think that I can do that. It's certainly not B tier. Like, it's nowhere near B tier. So we're just going to put Were Lion right next to Berserker in A tier. There's really nothing else that I can say about it beyond that. Like, if you want to use a Berserker and you only have room for one in your army, then just from a pure gameplay power perspective, it is the objectively correct decision to swap out your Berserker for Mirard the Were Lion and then never look back. Now, that said, I think you can absolutely have room for multiple Berserkers in an army, but that's a different conversation. So, Were Lion, A tier, for all the same reasons that we discussed with Berserker, plus it gets Bestial nighttime bonuses, which is awesome. Now we can move on to our feather units, starting with the Feather Sword. Feather Sword is an interesting one. I really like Feather Swords. However, they have this weird situation that they fall into where they really need their buffs. Because to actually deal really good damage, they need to be able to consume those buffs for their big triple strike attack that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. Something with, like, re-energize, recharge, something. I don't remember what it is. But they need that to be able to deal really good damage to finish things off. They deal okay damage if they don't have that, especially if they start comboing a bunch of, like, shield bashes together. But there's stuff that deals better damage for your frontline sword and board, kind of tanky, kind of dodgy, kind of damage dealer build. So I don't think they fall in C tier at all, because they are actually very versatile, and the debuffs that they can spread around, the damage that they can deal is really solid, but I don't think I can put them any higher than B tier. Like, they are kind of niche, kind of limited in a lot of ways. They really want something that's going to be able to give them other buffs other than just themselves that they can then consume for different effects, all that type of stuff. Like, B tier feels right. B tier absolutely feels right. They are very solid units. I'm happy to have them in a squad, but they're more limited than I would like to be able to put them in a higher tier. Now, feather bows. Feather bow for the blind alone goes in S tier. Like, no question. I know there's going to be people who gripe and moan about, oh, you have too many classes in S tier. When everything's S tier, nothing is in S tier. First of all, there's more stuff in all the other tiers than there is in S tier. First of all. Second of all, it's my tier list, and I'm going to do what I want. And there's a lot of really good classes in Unicorn Overlord, so deal with it, Scrublords. Feather bow just for the blind is already an S tier class. Then combine that with the fact that it is an archer, so it's going to be able to snipe other flyers with ease. It has other debuffs. It has good single target damage. It has good dual target damage. It can fly, so it can be a flying squad leader to be able to ferry things around terrain. It's got ranged assist and has good physical damage to make use of that ranged assist. Feather bows are just a phenomenal unit. They're quite possibly my favorite archer in the game. I know it's a little bit of a lofty thing to say when there's things like shield shooters out there, but like, feather bows are just so sick, man. Like, and I know we're not judging things based on design here and everything, but I love the feather bow design. I love the whole idea of their kit as this support archer, but like an offense support archer as opposed to the more defense of shield shooter or healing and buff resistance of elven archer. Like, feather bows are just so cool. Easy S tier, just for the blind alone, as anyone can tell you who walks into Albion for the first time and suddenly they need to change all of their strats. So yeah, don't even, like, don't at me over this choice, all right? Feather bows are S tier. I will hear none of it. Now, feather staves. I am really sad to do this to them, but I think feather staves are a C tier unit. Like, of all of the healing support staff units in the game, feather staves are the least impactful to me. They are good at what they do. I like the fact that they can give you the ability to just survive a lethal attack. They have the benefit of being a staff unit, so all those different good utility staves that have unique abilities on them or abilities from other classes on them you can use here, and that's really nice. They do fly, but in a lot of ways they're kind of competing with Were Owl for that type of flying staff user role, and a lot of what their kit does is kind of planning for defeat. Like, expecting to be losing and then giving you a way to avoid that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to have in your back pocket, but as their kind of defined niche beyond just the general healing that pretty much all support stave users can do, it's the weakest niche to have, in my opinion. It's preventative to the extreme. And while, yes, they'll definitely be able to keep things alive, the overheal can be nice, the resurrections can be nice, you can do that with other classes that the main identity of them isn't also, but what if we're about to die? I won't complain about having a feather staff. It's compared to having some of our other C rank things here, like, it never hurts to have a good support unit in the back line, just something that can toss some heals your way. But I like it to be able to do other stuff beyond just stopping us from dying literally outright. Yes, the last hit point is the only one that matters in a lot of cases, but if we never have to get to that point in the first place, then that feels better to me. So, yeah, I think it's got to be C tier. Feather shields. I'm really high on feather shields. Like, I'm really high on feather shields. I think feather shields are dope. They're quite possibly my favorite tanking class in the game. Because, like, you think about it, a feather shield can do pretty much everything that a Legionnaire can, while also not folding to magic, because it's way easier to buff physical defense over magical defense. They're flying, so they can help with your terrain navigation. They have the ability to actually completely reflect spells and prevent debuffs by turning them back on things and everything. Like, that's really nice. They can block any attack because of sacrifice. Yeah, there's certain things that Legionnaire, again, is going to do better. Legionnaire is the undisputed physical damage wall, and that's going to be the majority of damage that you're dealing with. But it's really easy to make feather shields really tanky in both physical and magical. Do I think that they can fall in S tier? I don't, because again, they're not really going to be dealing damage. And if you're not fighting something that has magic damage, then a lot of their kit just doesn't trigger. However, I do still think that they're better than Legionnaires, so I'm going to put them in A tier. I really like the fact that Feather Shields have such a wide range of defensive capabilities, much wider than a Legionnaire has, and you can still make it so that they can jump in the way of allies and protect them. So, yeah, it's got to be A tier for Feather Shield. It can't be S tier, and I can't put them in B tier because I do think they're better than Legionnaires. So, yeah, A tier is where it's going to sit. Dreadnought. I have mixed feelings about Dreadnought because obviously, like, Amalia's sheer presence lends a lot of the reputation to the class, and like just the sheer imposing size and the brutality of the attacks and everything. However, is it S tier? Like, actually, I don't know. Because it almost feels like Dreadnought is happier fighting alone than with a squad. And it is really strong, but it kind of just slaps. I don't know, because you're not getting the insane raw damage output of a Great Knight. You're not getting absolutely massive mixed magical and physical damage like with a Doom Knight. You're not getting massive AoE status effect infliction suppression like with something like Snow Ranger. You're not getting the raw versatility of something like a Valkyria. It's not flying with all the self-healing huge damage of a Griffin Master, the raw devastating overwhelming debuffs of a Druid. Like, there's a lot of things in S tier that I think deserve to fit there, and I don't know that Dreadnought reaches that lofty height. They're not bad. It's not a bad class at all. But I don't know. I was less impressed by it than I expected to be. Possessed Amalia, Possessed Dreadnought, completely different story, obviously. That would be a completely different scenario. But regular Dreadnought, I think, is just A tier. Yeah, this is possibly the least solid opinion for me out of this whole list. So I do invite people to discuss in the comments what you think of Dreadnought specifically. But it just doesn't feel like a must-use. It doesn't feel like it has the level of versatility that I like. And it fulfills its role fine. But its very nature makes it feel like it's not really a team player class. And I do think that takes some points off when everything else here is like, how does it fit into the team? You know? So, yeah, I think I'm going to sit with A for Dreadnought, at least for the moment. We'll do a final pass here and see what the final results are. But we'll move on for the moment. The last technically three classes we have are the other three classes of Dark Marquess, since you do get them at the end of the game. Once you finish the campaign, you can do your final mission and unlock them all and everything. And I mean, they've got different levels of effectiveness, sure, but I don't think there's any disputing that literally every Dark Marquess class is S tier. Like, they're all just so devastatingly strong in their own ways. And even though I would argue that Sword and Board Dark Marquess, Nigel's class, is probably the weakest out of the three, it's still devastatingly powerful. Like, any squad that has a Dark Marquess in it is immediately more capable just for their sheer presence. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Like, all four Dark Marquess classes are phenomenal. They cannot be anywhere other than S tier. Now, as for the rest of the classes that we have down here, a lot of them are either duplicates, like I had one version, male or female, of the class on the tier list. I left the other version off just to not clutter things up. That's largely what these all are. And then there's a couple of enemy-only classes, Necromancer, Dark Lord, Overlord, that we can't use. So I'm not going to rank them, because why would I do that? So now, we have our list. What could potentially be changed here? We'll just go through here really, really quick. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time debating it with myself. I'm just going to quick go through and see what I think. Lord, absolutely S tier. More than happy to have it early in the game. Soldier makes any squad better. Like, definitely a great class. Housecarl, phenomenal for its damage outputs. Phenomenal for its defense reduction. Thief, insane evade tank. Like, no questions asked. Cleric is great support. Witch is a great mix of support and damage. Shaman is just dumb. It's just gross. Radiant Knight also just done with how strong it is supporting and then also being a good cavalry unit. All 4 Dark Marquess classes obviously are not moving. Crusader. Crusader is the first one that I think I'm going to bump down. Because, yeah, Virginia is, like, really good when you get her. But she doesn't have as many pieces of the kit that she has once she's Valkyria that make her truly, truly disgusting. She's still really good, don't get me wrong. She's going to go to A tier. But there are other classes that I prefer to have earlier in the game over Crusader. Like, there's squads that she is absolutely really good in. Like, she's happy to be in pretty much any squad. But there's pieces of her kit missing that I think bring her down a little bit, even early in the game. So, A tier for Crusader. We're not moving Valkyria. Don't worry. We'll get to that. Prince is, I think, just S tier because any squad is happy to have the buffs. But Elven Augur and Sybil, yeah, we know are just completely disgusting. High Lord also ridiculous. Sergeant, I think I'm going to move down a tier. While Soldier is really, really good early on, there's a lot more competition for that sort of damage dealy, sort of supporting type of thing that Sergeant has going on, especially because later in the game it leans far more into the buff a particular type of character or one particular character in their squad. And to me, that is a little bit more niche combo-y. And so while they still have great utility, great versatility, there's a lot of competition for that slot. And it brings down their quality a little bit, I would say. Shield Shooter is great. I'm always happy to have a Shield Shooter. They're just so friggin' versatile. Great Knight is disgusting. Sainted Knight is disgusting. Doom Knight is disgusting. All 3 of those major cavalry classes are just phenomenally powerful. I don't think they deserve to be anywhere else. Sorceress, I think, is also still good to be in S tier just because their combo potential, the freeze, the buffs, all that type of good stuff. Same thing for Druid. Griffin Master's gross. Valkyria's gross. Snow Ranger, Featherbow. Yeah, I think these are good. I think these are good. And again, like, people are going to say, well, the fact that Snow Ranger is the best class in the game means that all these other classes shouldn't be up here. Listen, if this was like you can only bring 8 to 12 units, like a Fire Emblem situation, and each unit is one class, then we'd have to be a lot pickier. However, one Snow Ranger does not an army make. All of these classes have their own utility and versatility that they bring to the table, and the ones that are really good at it deserve to be in S tier because you need to have a lot of different classes to be able to build effective squads. Period. End of discussion. There's nothing else that can be said about it. So, one particularly busted unique class does not completely invalidate other classes from being S tier. Boom. A. Paladin, I think, is happy to stay where it is. It's just kind of a slightly less versatile Sainted Knight, regular Knight, Gladiator, Wizard. I'm fine with where they are in... Am I actually? My feelings on Wizard have kind of cooled a bit. If we're being perfectly honest. I'm going to bump Wizard down to B. Witch does so much, man. It really overshadows Wizard in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think Wizard's getting bumped down to B. Arbalist, I think, is fine where it is. I almost want to bump Gladiator down to B as well. But they're so hard to deal with early in... No. It's fine where it is. It's fine where it is, yeah. They're so hard to deal with early in the game. They deal, like, some of the best sweep damage. It's fine. They're fine where they are. Arbalist is good for its support capability still. Priestess is good. I think Priestess and High Priestess are both good to stay in A. May as well move them next to each other for the sake of it. Elven Fencer, I think, is absolutely A tier. Does not deserve to be moved down at all. Don't think it's quite S tier, despite what other people will say. Vanguard, absolutely an A-tier class. Like, such a good tank class. Viking is phenomenal. Lance Connect, obviously phenomenal. Berserker, Werelion, Bishop, Wyvern Master, all that type of good stuff. Yeah, I think A-tier is good the way that it is. Wyvern Master, Werefox, Werebear, Wereowl. I feel happy with the Were classes that we put in A. I do. They feel fine where they are. Feather Shield, I still almost want to be able to move up to S tier, but that's personal bias that I'm going to avoid because I just think the class is cool. I do think they're an A tier class, though. Yeah, I think we're good here. Fighter for, well, going down to B tier. Fighter, absolutely a B tier class. It's a very, very solid class. Very middle of the road, which is exactly where it wants to be with B tier. Absolutely fine. Hunter, I actually think I want to move up a tier. In the early game, Hunter is so important. It's so strong. Being able to snipe flyers, being like the only thing that can deal with flyers for you, and there's plenty of flyers. Being a good damage dealer, having versatility with things like the poison and fire bows. Yeah, I think that definitely deserves to be A tier. Hunter deserves to be A tier for sure. Sellsword and Dark Knight, I think I'm perfectly happy to have in B tier. They really need their promoted class kit to come online before they're particularly good. Elven Archer. Elven Archer. I mean, just pure field alone makes them pretty good. Yeah, I should probably bump them up to A tier. I've warmed up to Elven Archers quite a bit since I first started using them. I still don't think that they're the strongest units around, much like I don't feel that Elven Fencers are the strongest units around, but they are definitely good. They're definitely good. Pure field is great. Being able to set up like a post-battle AoE heal with the whole first aid kit Elven Archer combo to be able to guarantee heal the entire team. That's really nice. Magical effect arrows are good. Yeah. Yeah, A tier feels better for Elven Archer. And then everything else here I think is good. Legionnaire, solid B tier. Wizard and Warlock I think are both B tier. Wizard should be moved up here just for consistency. Swordmaster we just moved up to B. I'm happy with that. Werewolf and Feather Sword I'm also happy with being in B. Now, C tier. Hoplite Warrior and Sword Fighter are all happy where they are. Not super impressive early in the game. I do like fighters better than hoplites for most scenarios in the early game. Warrior really wants breaker skills to come online. I'm not super impressed with them early in the game. And Sword Fighter is just fine. Like, Sword Fighter, you could maybe make an argument for B tier, but by the time you get them, like, you've got other good damage dealers as well. Like, yeah, they can kind of snipe stuff preemptively. Not super valuable to me, so. Sniper and Rogue, definitely the classes that fell off the most for me. I don't think I need to move them out of C. I'm totally fine with them where they are. Definitely saw the least use out of all the human promoted classes for me. And then Feather Staff, I think, is the bottom of the barrel for healing units. Like, it's still good as a healing unit, but compared to the other healers, I don't think it deserves to be anything higher than C tier. So, and that, my friends, is the end of the comprehensive class overview tier list for Unicorn Overlord. I may wind up coming back to this one more time after we've cleared our Truz and Neuron challenge run to see how I feel about some of these classes by the end of the game. But I'm going to tell you right now, the way that that run has been going thus far, I feel rock solid about my unpromoted classes. We are 2/3 of the way through Drakenhold at the moment, at the time of this recording in that run, and that feels perfectly fine. All of the classes have been performing exactly as I expected that they would from what past experience has been with them. So all the base classes are going to be fine. The non-human classes and the promoted classes, that's where things are going to get interesting. That might be worth kind of reconfiguring this just in general, or maybe for a specific Truz and Neuron list. We'll have to see. So I do think we'll be doing that at the end of that run. But this is good. This is good. I feel very happy with this list. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of spirited discussion in the comments. A lot of people acting like I'm the absolute most, like, heinously lunatic person to ever create a tier list. That's fine. You know, shoot your shot. Let it out. I'll take it. I'll clap back, too. Y'all know that. But let me know what your thoughts are here. If you would move some things up or down, if you feel like something's being over-evaluated, mis-evaluated, all that type of stuff, do let me know. It is curious, or I'm always curious to see that discussion. Plenty more other Unicorn Overlord, Aiden Chronicles, all that type of stuff, all that content still on the horizon, and more streams as well. But until then, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so much for watching. I do very much appreciate it. I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.